Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back to the 54th episode of the Since I Was Young podcast for all things Heart of Midlothian. Joining you as always is myself, Ewan, and Alan. We do hope you're all well. So, what's been happening? A miserable fucking week for any Hearts fan out there. That is what's been happening. Obviously, the two games that we've had this week, both in the League Cup against Kilmarnock and in the league fixture against Motherwell. Obviously, didn't
Livingston.
go. Sorry,
Livingston.
mate. I don't even care. Like, no. Let's not fucking do that because it could have been anyone, and it would have been the same result. Livingston at the Tony Macaroni Arena. What a fucking sight that was. Yeah. So obviously, we would say that that's going to be our plan for this evening's podcast, but of course, like everybody else and ourselves, we don't like to delve too much into not just one but two defeats on the bounce, so we won't delve too much into the games that were played throughout this week, but we will talk about some of the talking points as such. And the main sort of topics we're going to be talking about as such as the transfer window closed firmly shut just a few days ago. We're going to be talking about the transfer that Hearts have had overall and kind of discuss the big sort of signings and the talking points for the players that we have brought in, and possibly some of the potential shite as well. But of course, we all have to have an open mind. And of course, we're going to be wrapping things off as we look ahead to where we start our European group stage campaign in the Europa Conference League, where we open up our games account against Istanbul. Won't even try to say their second name, but Istanbul. And we will look forward to the game on Thursday that is being held at Tynecastle. 10-6, I believe you said, Alan, is the kickoff time. Fucking weird fucking a kickoff time, but hey ho. That's going to be your podcast, jam-packed full of our shite. We do hope you enjoy it. But as always, as usual, before we do start, if you aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel for the Since I Was Young podcast, please think about subscribing and smash that like button for this video. As always, it greatly helps us out to get the video out there. And of course, if you want to get in contact with us via our various social media pages and our personal email as well, please feel free to do so. The links will be in the description and on screen as you see. So we do hope you have a jam-packed, amazing, fucking hell of a time with the Since I Was Young podcast for this 54th episode. So Alan, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to change things about. I would love you to open up the account of the 54th episode, and what would you like to start by talking about, mate? Because I seem to always choose the first subject. So you have the honor, so you can fire away at what shite we talk about this week.
Okay, sounds good. Probably have to start on a little bit of a depressing topic with one of the defeats. I know you said we weren't going to dive into it too much, but the League Cup loss to Kilmarnock wasn't great, was it?
No, just really positive. But again, not to kind of overtake what you're just about to say, but not to jump too kind of forward in to the to the conversation. But I guess with the injuries and with the overwhelming games that we'll have, coming up throughout this year. Anyway, to me, it's not really like a huge thing. When in fact, I actually think for the long term, it's a good thing. Like just the one less with a competition to be was involved in, and out of all of them, it's probably the one that you'd least want to participate in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I was a bit annoyed about it, to be fair.
No,
because it's one of those competitions that we've not won in like forever, and I made peace with it. I don't think we're ever going to win it. Like, I genuinely
mate, who wants, seriously. I had this conversation like a few days ago. Was with a few Hibs fans. Was it now? I can understand why the old firm want to win it because obviously, both I got a chance to touch when the treble with it. Aye, like of course, but why are fans like, especially why are Hibs fans so obsessed with it? Oh, use them no won that cup in 60 odd year. I don't fucking care. It means nothing. It
Do you know,
means nothing.
it's one of those though. The only reason I kind of want to win it is just to be like, right, thank fuck, we finally won it. Right, let's just
But
people can
why?
stop going on about it. But the thing is, and the reality is, it doesn't really get you anything. Like you don't get a European spot for winning it.
Nope.
The prize money is like probably the same amount that you'd put in your car for petrol,
Aye.
or pay your energy bill at this point.
True. Aye, true. But
A bit of real world hate in there, but anyway, yeah, like I think going back to the actual game though, I think like it was one of those games that I kind of thought that we might see Connor Smith, we might see Ewan Henderson, we might see some rotation in that sense, bring the young players in, but Robbie put a fairly strong team out. He put a
he
fairly strong
did.
team out.
He did.
Obviously, it was the first game that we've had to play without Liam Boyce, which I'm sure we'll dive into in a little while. But yeah, they just didn't look great. I don't know what it was. I think they were just quite lackluster. There was nothing. Like we didn't have anything. And we conceded a goal from a cross. Gordon just it kind of looped over him. So I don't really think I think he thought it might have been going wide from one of the angles that I saw. But yeah, it wasn't a great game. As I say, there's a lot like we spoke about Liam Boyce last week. I might as well move on to that since that's where we're going. I spoke about Boyce last week about his contribution and that celebration that he did and all that. Obviously
And now he's came back to bite him on the arse.
yeah, well, he doesn't look great now, but I think yeah, he's potentially out for the season. I'd be very surprised if we saw him again this season, unfortunately. We need to learn to play without him. We need to learn a way of playing without him. And I think in these last two games that we've had, the two defeats, his absence is massive. Like there's nothing at the top end of the pitch that's holding it in, and that's what Boyce did. He held it in, he let people in, he played the ball through. He was that focal point. And without him, it's a massive hole there, like huge. And I said it as well before that I think George Grant can play in the 10. And I think that's the way to go going forward. But it is a real blow to lose Liam Boyce. It's a real blow that Halkett's still out. Hopefully, he won't be long till he's back. I think Robbie said he was touch and go for Livingston, so he may well play in Europe, but we'll see. Because without the two of them, we've been absolutely like there's just nothing. Like defensively, and I had made this point before as well. Defensively, we've kind of been okay, but without Halkett, his organization and his leadership and his ability to just keep everybody right.
Yeah.
We've lost that massively. And obviously Kingsley was back for the Livingston game, which was massive. Good to have him back in the team, thankfully. But yeah, it's not like you said at the start, it's just not been a very good week, has it?
It really hasn't. I mean, that actually brings me on to a question that I didn't actually was the mention was it to yourself, like like sort of even before we started recording. So the Boyce, let's be real, he's probably not going to be back for the rest of the season, right? Now, you and me, I don't know if it was last year or if it was at the start of this season. Now, Boyce is now what, 31, 30?
Yeah, I think so. He's early
Right?
30s anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I believe he didn't sign a new contract last year, which is going to make me naturally assume that he's in the last year of his contract or he's close to it, right?
Runs out in the summer, yeah.
Right.
End of season.
So this brings me on to my question. Now, obviously, we kind of played about with the idea of, with players, with getting older, etc. Now, it's not to say that Boyce is nowhere near like sort of the end of his like of his best days as such, but with the injury that he's got now, which will practically take him out for the end of the year, do you think that us as a club and the way that we're kind of doing business just now, do you think that it might be likely that we need to start potentially seeing a squad or like a future squad without the Boyce kind of with a beyond next season? Because obviously, if he's going to pick up injuries like that, which, like, you know what I mean, which will kind of take him out for like a longer period, was a like a time. Obviously, I don't know when his birthday is, but if he's going to be turning 31 or 32 next year,
Yeah.
it's not to say that I wouldn't want him in, well, like, you're in the side, like 100%. Was it? He would be one of the first names on there, but you know where I'm kind of going with this, like,
Yeah, yeah, I do, and I think, to be fair, I think in the summer, like the transfers that we made, it was like we were going after that South Korean boy, and
Mm.
he's a forward. Obviously Shankland is a forward that scores goals. We brought in Stephen Humphreys on loan from Wigan. He's a forward. I'm giving him a free pass for the Livingston
Ah,
game because he's literally just probably only just
just
arrived about,
walked in.
yeah, like literally been in Edinburgh like 48 hours before, and then we're throwing him into a game like that. So I'm kind of, he wasn't great against Livingston, but he probably
No,
doesn't
but
even
like,
know. But the thing is, he probably doesn't even know half his teammates' names. So do you know what I mean?
precisely.
Like,
Aye.
I'll write him off on that one. But yeah, I think we are actively looking for more forwards, and I think Robbie's virtually said the same thing. Like, it's defensively we're fine in terms of the players we've got there. We can cover, but maybe we could do another one. Maybe the free agent might come in. I don't know, but yeah, it is an area that we need to look at. But I think the biggest frustration, the biggest concern for me is that against Kilmarnock and Livingston, two sides that, okay, they'll make it hard for you, but we played Kilmarnock at Tynecastle. We should have won that game. Like that, the team that was on the pitch was good enough to win that game.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They just didn't have anything, like I said. And against Livingston, we were just terrible. Like every single player. I said it, the only person that gets pass marks from the Livingston game for me is Craig Gordon. So I think we are in serious trouble without Liam Boyce. And I think people who perhaps didn't rate him before now might start to think actually he is quite important to this team,
Mm-hmm.
because without him, we look blunt up front, and that's it's not Shanklin's fault. It's not Mackay's fault. It's Boyce makes that front line tick, and I've said that for such a long time
Yeah, no, you have.
that now without him, it's like, okay, what do we do now? But you're right that Robbie needs to. We need to start looking for something beyond that, because yeah, he's in the last year of his contract. He had the exact same injury, but on the opposite knee, I believe it was
Jesus, right.
previously, and that was the last long-term injury that he had. So
Mm.
this is a new one, but he was only out for 6 months the last time, so
So
he might be back before
yeah,
the end of the
I
season.
who knows?
But it's I think, and this is a point that I want to make further on, so I might as well make it now. In terms of transfers that we've made, the squad still lacks something up front. And I would say
Yeah.
that even if Boyce was fit, I would say that.
I mean, talking to the transfers in general that we brought in, I don't think there's one player that kind of stands out that I thought, I'm not too sure. I mean, like, of course, like, there's been players that we don't know of or we've not heard of, but, like, for the likes of Jorge, despite yes, despite the card, like, against, was it Zurich? I thought he's actually done quite well. Like, he's was it
Yeah.
made that sort of was essential, like, sort of the mid to, like, sort of red role his own. Or like Kaya the roles as well. I think he's done absolutely fabulous. Humphrey, again, like, we don't know, so, like,
Yeah.
like, he just there. Xander Clark, like, I was so shocked by that. I was really
So was
shocked
I.
by that.
Yeah, so was I.
And I thought it was a great signing, just for the simple fact that I never have to see that cheesy cunt in between the fucking sticks again. Like, I'm sorry, but you're never going to get ahead of one, Xander Clark. And two, to be fair, I think Harry Stone, from a very, very like a specific point of view, He's young. He's hungry. He wants to be in there. But like,
Yeah.
why is he still there? I'm sorry, like I'm gonna go on a completely different right now, but why is he still there? Like
He played
fifth.
he played a blinder against Celtic at Parkhead, so I
Oh,
have
he
to give
only
him.
let in fucking 2 goals. Aye, sorry. Like
Hey, did you see them batter? Who was it? Well, they battered Rangers recently, and then they scored, what was it, 9 against United? Was it 8 or 9? So, I don't I don't worry
anyhow,
about it.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. We're
no,
getting into like semantics here, but like honestly, but no, like for the likes of, I think the signings that we've made, I think even throughout this year and last year as well. Like, of course, like last year there were a few players that were a bit like, but I think, like you said, the squad in general, I think is quite good. It's just like obviously, like it's just, like it still seems to be that if one specific integral with a player, with like gets injured,
yeah,
then we're like, oh fuck. And we had the exact same thing, was it last year, like as well, and it was like with the Boyce as well. So
yeah,
like so we're still kind of in terms of the depth, like
yeah.
the overall depth, like without having to kind of spill into the academy players,
Hmm.
it's still a relatively small-ish squad. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I think, like Robbie said, and I'm sure Joe Savage said it as well, that they're targeting quality over quantity rather
Yeah.
than going out and signing anyone, which
And
is a
that's
good way to
absolutely
do
right.
it.
Yeah. No, no, that's
Yeah,
absolutely right.
it's what you should expect. To be honest, like we had trialists in during the summer that played in preseason games that we didn't go for. We didn't give them deals,
Yeah.
even though fans were saying, who was the defender? Was it Drew Wright? I think his name was. Did I get it
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Can't mind his first name, but
because we tried to sign him a previous season, you mentioned it, but
hmm,
then he got like
yeah.
injured or something. But yeah,
Aye, like we brought him in on trial in the summer, played him in pre-season, and there were a lot of fans saying, "Yeah, sign him up. Sign him up. He's an option." But the club decided not to, and there's obviously a reason why they chose to
aye,
not do that. They might be feeling like maybe they should have now, considering the injuries that we've got. But it's one of those things. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and the injuries that we've got right now, nobody saw those coming.
absolutely
You,
no,
you
no,
didn't
exactly.
you didn't expect Atkinson to get injured. You didn't expect Kai Rolls to get injured. He's done his metatarsal, so he's out for I think it's about a month and a bit.
Yeah, so
And obviously Boyce as well. So the squad is quite thin. But my biggest issue with that is that when Robbie's rotating in the league, like he did against Livingston, because he's obviously trying to get adjusted to 2 games in a week, the squad that we have is not good enough it's not deep enough and it's not good enough to rotate it how you
yeah,
want to. Because ideally, like you see it for like Celtic and Rangers, and I know obviously they've got massive depth and quality because they can afford to do that. But when they rotate a side, it's like they make 7 changes, or they make 6 changes, and it's key players that are rested. Right now, we can't afford to rest key players. Like
no,
we can try, like you rest like Barry Mackay, you rest Shanklin, but you still bring them off the bench because, like, well, we needed them against Livingston, so we brought Shanklin on against Livingston, even though he didn't start the game. So it's that, and it is a policy again that I totally agree with, because in order to be fit for the European games, you need a bit
yeah,
of rest, you need a bit of rotation. But I think it's a gamble that, to be honest, is not paying off at the moment. And we said it last week as well that Europe is amazing. Don't get me wrong, it's brilliant to be in the group stages of any European
yeah,
competition, regardless of what it is. But for me, Europe this season is a reward for last season.
yeah.
And although I saw a stat earlier on that we're only 2 points worse off at this stage than we were last year, so it's not total disaster, let's be honest. But I don't feel that we're strong enough to rotate and still keep the quality, especially with Liam Boyce
No,
being out as well. Um, and yeah, look, I said it to multiple people after the Livingston game that for me, Europe is a sideshow this season. As good as it is to be involved in
it
it,
is. No, no, man,
it's
it is though.
it's a luxury. And if we take our eye off the league because we're rotating for Europe, there will be more games like Livingston. And
Yep.
then, you know, we're only still joint third because Ross County scored against Aberdeen in the last minute.
Aye, no,
So
exactly.
you have to weigh it up, and I do agree with what Robbie's doing, but at the same time, I feel like he needs to kind of just maybe just have a think about it because what are our European expectations? Let's be honest. Like what from that group are we expecting to qualify out of that group?
Mate, I said what was it last week, and it like for some fans, like they will probably was it I disagree, but like mate, like I said, was it last week? Like and I do actually like kind of agree was it like with it more now. Just have a fucking good time, like you
Hmm.
said. It's a it's a reward for, for the work that we did last year. The fact that we're in a group stage, like not was it like was it just a qualifying stage? We're in a group stage about the competition. We'll have some cracking with was it the ties in there. Let's just go
Absolutely.
and just have a good time. Like,
Yeah.
can you know what I mean?
No, I do. I agree with that, and I think that there needs to be an element of that. Like, I don't know whether Robbie's doing it now because obviously we've not started the group stage yet. Maybe he's thinking, I'll play the strongest team in the first few games and see if we get anything.
Aye.
If we lose, say if we lose against Istanbul on Thursday night, does he then go, okay, you know, we'll play the strongest team in the league because the league then becomes the priority? That might be what he's doing because obviously
Possibly, yeah.
we've got 6 group games between now and Christmas to play. So it might well be that he wants to try and start strong, and if we don't, he might then say, okay, we can't afford to rotate in the league anymore. Europe's a write-off. Let's just focus on the league. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's that, but
Mm.
I think the squad is strong enough to see us to January. And obviously, injuries will come back. Kai Rolls will come back. Atkinson will come back. And then Michael Smith can hopefully have a rest because that man has played far too much
Yeah,
football.
I
Like,
know.
I adore Michael Smith. I really do. I think he's outstanding. I think he's a quality player. I think he's Mr. Reliable. We've said it so many times, but he's played far too much football.
Yeah, for
Far too
sure.
much.
For
He
sure.
needs a rest. He needs a rest. And I think that's something else as well. But it is. And yeah, it just, as I say, the rotation policy, I agree with it and I believe it. And I think it's the right thing to do. But the squad's not deep enough for us to rotate out these players and still have quality because
Mm,
we don't have anyone creatively on a level of Barry Mackay. We don't have anybody in terms of goal scoring on a level with Shanklin. So when you rotate those two out, there's nobody else, and that's the issue. That's the
mm.
issue because there's a massive drop off in quality from, say, well, for example, Lawrence Shankland to Ewan Henderson. It's night and day, and that's not Henderson's fault.
No, no,
He's
no,
just
no.
he's younger, and
Aye.
that's how it works. But when you're rotating players out for players that are not as good, obviously there's going to be a drop off in quality, and then you
Exactly.
add no Boyce to that. There's a real problem with that. But we'll see what happens, and I hope they have a solution. As I say, it might well be that they're just seeing how the first few European games go before they decide, right, let's just sack this off and focus on the league again.
But yeah, like I mean, before we kind of wrap up on the things when it comes to the game on Thursday, I'm gonna give you the floor here because I know that it's something that's kind of stuck at you when you sent me the text and you were fucking raging. I was like, fucking hell, right? So we're gonna
Yeah.
just have a few minutes to talk about a transfer that we actually brought in last year, which is our young defender Toby Civic. Now, you feel as if he's been under a lot of unfair kind of with criticism, which again, like every fans had the right to have an was a like opinion on them, but you feel as if some of that criticism is a little bit unjust, mate. So you can have the floor and you can explain why.
I like how you set me up for that one.
It's fine, mate, because it means
Yeah.
none of the shite will flow like it me, mate. So it's fine.
Oh, mate, listen, like we said last week, I'm a Twitter fiend, so my Twitter followers know that I like Toby Sibbick. But yeah, so essentially, I'm not saying for 1 minute that he doesn't deserve some criticism because he hasn't been in good form. You know that's fair. But I'll sort of rewind it a bit. So I went to the first leg of the second leg of the Zurich game at Tynecastle, right? And Toby Sibbick comes on to the pitch and gets booed by some sections. It was a minority, I'll throw it out there. It was a minority of fans that booed him. And I'll admit, I put my head in my hands thinking, okay, that's not really the great substitution that you'd want because he's been shaky recently. He's not been in good form. So I was a little bit nervous. Didn't boo him because I would never boo a Hearts player, regardless of form or regardless of how they're doing or regardless of what I think. I would never boo a
Oh,
Hearts player. Any player that wears maroon gets support from me, regardless. And again, as I say, I stress it's a minority that booed him. There were a couple of people sitting in front of me that booed him, which kind of, I think that's what started kind of grinding my gears, to be honest, is because they were right in front of me and I just thought, what the fuck is this about? But anyway, so yeah, I think Toby Sibbick is a player that we've not seen the best of by any stretch, but he's young. And I think people need to remember that. Toby was on loan with us at a time when the club wasn't in a good place, obviously under Daniel Stendel and all the rest of it. And people seem to think that because Daniel Stendel played him in a couple of games in defensive midfield, that's what Robbie should do. And that'll get the best out of him because he looked good in a couple of games when Daniel Stendel was in charge. The Daniel Stendel's reign is irrelevant at this point. This is a different Hearts now, and it's a different Toby Sibbick as well. It's this is a guy, as I say, who was on loan. He left us. He had the opportunity to come back, and he came back because he enjoyed being in Edinburgh. He enjoyed playing for Hearts. He likes where he is. I'm sure when he wanted to leave Barnsley, he had offers to go elsewhere, but he chose to come. I mean, we know he rejected Hibs, which is amazing in itself. I mean, anybody would reject Hibs, but you know what I mean. Because of his Hearts connections and because of how much it meant to him to play for us, he knew I can't go to Hibs. I'm not going to Hibs. Why would I go there? He's not a
well,
Demi Mitchell. He's not a Demi Mitchell. He's not going to go to Hibs. So, like for me, that gives Toby Sibbick some credit. Okay, his performances on the park haven't been fantastic, but do you think booing him is going to help the situation? And it blows my mind that fans, and again, I stress it's a minority, but if you're one of the minority that were booing him, this is aimed at you. What are you doing? Like, this is a player who's not in good form. He needs confidence. He needs support. Even Michael Smith said it as well. It's this is a young player that is prone to make a mistake. That's what a young player does. They're not going to be perfect. They're not going to get everything right. Were they booing Toby Sibbick when he cleared it off the line at Easter Road against Hibs? No, they weren't, because that got us a point. Like, it's so frustrating. And I just think that, and I said it, like, I think Toby Sibbick is a player that can do something for Hearts. I do. I think there's to coin my usual phrase, there's a player in there. And I just think he needs an arm around him. And I think he needs someone to say, you know what, mate, you're actually not that bad. Don't listen to the idiots that boo you, because it's a minority. But I just feel that we have to give him something, because if you're going to boo him constantly, or if you're like me, I felt nervous, I felt anxious when he came on against Zurich because I thought, oh dear, here we go. But that shouldn't be a thing. It should be right. He's coming on. Let's back him. Let's give him something. And to be fair, against Livingston, for 5 minutes, they sang the Toby Sibbick song. Some fans sang the Toby Sibbick song about him coming up from Barnsley, hating the high bees and all the rest of it. I can't remember the words, but anyway. And I loved hearing that because I was like, it's been so long since we've heard the Toby Sibbick song.
aye.
Like, this is a kid that's good. He is a good player. He wouldn't be playing in the English. I think Barnsley were Championship or League One at one
Championship at
point
that
when he was
level, yeah.
there. So he wouldn't be playing at that level if he was just garbage. Like, that's what really frustrated me. And I think, like I said, for me, he's a player that has been brought into the club to do a job. He's not a first choice centre back because he isn't. And when
No.
everybody's fit, he won't be a first choice centre back. Right now, he has to play because we don't really have anybody else.
Yeah.
And it really, really annoyed me to hear him getting booed. And it's something that I hate to hear it for any player, especially a young one. Like it really, really annoyed me. But I have to say, against Livingston, he wasn't actually that bad. And even, he needs confidence at the end of the day. And like I say, against Livingston, he wasn't brilliant, but he wasn't terrible. I'll lead on to another one that I wanted to talk about as well. I made a point last week about Cammy Devlin, and I'm not saying I got some hate for it because I didn't, but I did get some feedback from people, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback 100% because, again, like I said last week, football's all about conversation and discussion. Cammy Devlin was awful against Livingston. He was terrible. And he wasn't the only one, but he was the standout worst player on the park in that first 45 minutes. And for me, that sums up the point I made last week. Against Zurich, he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I'm not asking him for him to match that intensity every week because he'll be burnt out after 3 games. But against Livingston, he just didn't look interested, just didn't look arsed. And I don't know why that was. I don't know if he didn't want to get injured ahead of playing against Istanbul, potentially. That might well be the case, but he was so poor against Livingston. He got hooked after just before an hour. I think it was 55 minutes he played. He got taken off, but should have went off at halftime. There were a few of them that should have went off at halftime, but he should have been the first one, to be honest with you. And look, again, I'm probably going to get something for this, but I'll say it anyway because why not? I totally back Cammy Devlin. I think he's a fantastic player for Hearts. He's come to Hearts to enhance his career in European football. There are players at Hearts that have come over from these leagues that are using us as a stepping stone to bigger clubs, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Because if Cammy Devlin comes into Hearts and stays for 3 years, 4 years, whatever, and gets a big move to England, great, because we make money. And we've had a good player that's done well for us. That's absolutely fine. I do not have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is players turning up when the cameras are on. And I think against Zurich, he was brilliant because he knew that game was televised and he knew people would be watching. And now we're in Europe. It's like, right, that's an audience. And like I say, I want the best version of Cammy Devlin every week because if we have that, he's an unbelievable player. Unbelievable.
So you just feel that it's the consistency that you want actually from him, yeah?
Yes, I do. And I'm fully prepared for him to turn into prime N'Golo Kante when we play Istanbul on Thursday night and prove me wrong. But at the same time, it proves me right because he was garbage against Livingston. And that there's got to be a middle ground somewhere with players. And again, like I say, if you've come to Hearts to impress, to get a big move, good on you. Because that means you're gonna do well for us, and I'm happy with that. But against Livingston, and I might be taking it out on him unfairly because, as I said, the only person that got pass marks for me was Gordon because without him it would have been 3 or 4-0. He was so poor against Livingston. He really was. Without going over old ground, the Livingston game, the biggest issue was we lost every battle. And Robbie said it after the game. That can't happen. And he's right. Like, Robbie got a lot of stick for the team he put out because he rotated a little bit. However, the team he put out against Livingston, quality-wise, is more than good enough to win that game. But I just think maybe their eyes were on the European tie. Maybe it was an element of I don't want to get injured because I want to play in that game. It might have been. And that might have been the case for several players. I don't know. But there was just something so wrong with the Livingston performance. And yeah, look, Cammy stood out as the worst player on the park in the first 45 minutes for me. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks that because there was a Twitter meltdown at halftime in that game. Because he was just, I think the thing is we have such high, not expectations, but we have high high standards when it comes to Cammy Devlin because we've seen how good he can be. And then when he doesn't get anywhere near that, you go, where's Cammy?
Where is he? Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I know he came out in midweek and did an interview and basically said, we need to switch on, we need to be better, we need to be stronger after the Livingston defeat. And he's right. Because, like I said, Robbie came out after the Livingston game and said, there were so many things that were wrong in that performance, but the biggest one was we just didn't put enough into it, and that can't happen. So
Well, no.
yeah, but on Toby Sibbick, I hope that I don't know whether he'll play against Istanbul because there's whispers that Halkett might be back. Do you risk Halkett in that game? I think you probably have to.
Yeah.
And then Sibbick can be that bench defender because he's not good enough to be a first team defender for Hearts right now. But my thing again, before I'll let you say what you want to say and we can move on to the next thing. Lewis Nielsen played brilliantly
He did.
against St Johnstone, was fantastic. What's going to happen when he makes a mistake?
No, man, exactly. Like, look,
that's what I'm saying. And football fans are incredibly fickle. We're all incredibly fickle. It's what we do. But yeah, I just think Toby Sibbick gets a lot of unfair criticism for someone that, yeah, he's made some errors. He's cost us some goals. But he's by far nowhere near the worst player I've seen playing for Hearts in many a
no.
year.
No, like, look, like, I mean, the only thing that I kind of have to say on Civic is that, like, like, I totally agree in the sense that no matter who you are, as long as you're in a Heart shirt, me personally, I will not bloody, like, debut you. Like, even even though I didn't like how it went about, if I was at the game after Stutter signed a pre-contract for the Rangers, I probably wouldn't have either because again, it's all for the good of the whole team. And if one player starts to go down and he's with a confidence levels, that then like affects the whole fucking team. So like what I mean, I don't agree.
Exactly.
Like I said, like I don't know was it like agree with that, because why would we have signed him on a 3-year contract? He's a work in progress. That's what we brought him in for. Like, what I mean,
Exactly. And
And
just one
sorry, go
last
on.
thing before, no, just one last thing that's just popped into my head. Like the solution with Sibbick might be that he plays in midfield. It might
Yeah.
be because I've said that before. I'd like to see it, but fans basically saying Robbie needs to play him in midfield because that'll get the best out of him. It's an easy thing to say. It's an easy thing to say, I'll keep him as far away from the defense as possible. That's like saying, Nathaniel Atkinson's not a right back. He should be playing right wing, which maybe he should. Maybe he could do a job in right wing. You don't know. But it's too easy to say that. And it's almost
Precisely.
just given up. It's given up. And I think, like you said, Toby Sibbick is a work in progress. There's a lot of progress that's needed. I'm not going
Of
to deny
course.
it.
No, granted.
But my main point is if you're booing him, it's not going to help the situation. Give the lad a break. Like,
Mm.
he's playing for Hearts. The people in the stands that booed him would love to be playing for Hearts. So, just get over yourselves, essentially.
Strong words, Alan. Strong words. Well, we would love to hear what you guys think. And of
Yeah.
course, we will probably put up something on our Twitter page regarding that. But we have one last thing to cover, and let's bring a little bit of light back into this room. So we have the Istanbul game to kick off our group stage campaign in the Europa Conference League. Now, Alan, you'll be hyped up because that'll be your was it your the main man's team, the most overrated fucking player that I've ever seen in my life, the Mesut Ozil. So what are we thinking? Obviously, I'd say that they're like from my point of view, they're probably the second best team in that group. I'd like to Fiorentina and that team I've not ever actually heard of. Do you think that we could maybe take something from that game, like especially with it being at home as well, and with it being the first like game of the group stages, or
I've gone back and forward so many times on this game, genuinely.
mm,
It's funny because, yeah, I would probably say Fiorentina are the best team in the group,
yeah,
but Istanbul were the top seed. They were the pot one team. So,
there you go.
it's obviously to do with coefficients and experience, etc. But
Aye,
yeah, I really don't know because Istanbul domestically they've been in really good form recently. I think they won at the weekend, and I think they're 10 unbeaten. It might even be more than that.
mm,
Um, So yeah, it's going to be a tricky game. Like it really is, whether Ozil plays or not. Like it's going to be a tough game. Um, there was something that came out today actually, which I thought was quite interesting. Their coach Emery, that used to play for Newcastle many years ago. He's actually been banned from being on the touchline because he doesn't have the appropriate coaching badge that you require to be basically in Europe, I suppose.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so he's got coaching badges, but not to
Aye,
the
no,
level
no,
that
but yeah.
they need to be. So that might do something. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be a really tricky game, and I think people like you said, suggesting it's at Tynecastle and that should give us a lift. It should give us a lift. But I, if you'd asked me when we had a fully fit squad, if I think we'll win, I'd say our chances are better.
Yeah.
The issue I have is what I said earlier on. We look blunt in certain areas of the park where you need to not be blunt in, i.e., the forward line. I hope that we do something. I hope that we get a result. But equally, if somebody offered me a draw right now, I'd probably take it.
You and me both. So, well, on that note, just to kind of wrap things off, what is your prediction for Thursday night against Istanbul?
I'm gonna go for a. What am I gonna go for? I'm gonna go for a 1-0 loss. I'm gonna go for a win for Istanbul.
Interesting.
Unfortunately,
No,
unfortunately.
man, no, no, man. That's absolutely fair. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think, again, just like you said there, I think being at home, first game of the group stage, I think will
Yeah.
give us a wee lift.
To be fair,
Because
I could see it. I could see it being a draw. I just don't
mm,
think we'll win. I don't think we'll win, but I could see it
yeah,
being a draw. But I'm
yeah,
sticking to my 1-0.
and that is fair enough, and then that is fair enough. And as again, we would love to hear what you guys think and what the score will be on Thursday night against Istanbul. And if you're actually was it to be in attendance at the actual game, and we would love to hear all your thoughts on what we've talked about throughout the last hour or so on today's podcast. And that brings us to an end on the 54th episode. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. It is always greatly appreciated. And as always, if you are not subscribed to the Since I Was On YouTube channel, please think about subscribing, smash that like button as always. And if you want to get in contact with us via our socials and that etc. and our emails as well, please feel free to do so with all the links will be in the description. So from myself and Alan as well, if you're going to the game, we do hope you have a fantastic time and an even the better week, and we will see you in the next one. You take care. Bye for now.